mass of foam, to consciousness as like an illusion. When he considers thus, the bodhisattva courses in the perfection of patience. For the sake of just those beings he never, while on his way to full enlightenment, produces a lazy thought, but diligently he searches for all that is wholesome. And why? Because he thinks to himself, the lazy can neither work the wheel of beings nor know full enlightenment. When he considers thus, the bodhisattva, the great being, courses in the perfection of vigor. For the sake of those beings he never, while on his way to full enlightenment, has distracted thoughts. When he considers thus, the bodhisattva, the great being, courses in the perfection of meditation. For the sake of those beings he also, while on his way to full enlightenment, never again becomes lacking in wisdom. And why? For he knows that he could not mature beings except by entering into the perfection of wisdom, and that therefore he should not produce even one single stupid thought. It is thus that the bodhisattva, the great being, just for the sake of beings courses in the perfection of wisdom. Subhoti. If there is no difference between the perfections, how is it that this perfection of wisdom has been called the foremost of the five perfections? The principal, the best, the choicest, the most excellent, the most sublime, the highest, the utmost, the unequaled. The Lord. So it is, Subhuti, so it is. There is no difference at all between the perfections. But if there were no perfection of wisdom, then these five perfections would not get the designation of perfections. For it is thanks to the perfection of wisdom that they get this designation. Just as, Subhuti, various kinds of bodies, when they have approached Sumeru, the king of mountains, become of one color. Just so, Subhuti, thanks to the perfection of wisdom, these five perfections get the designation of perfections, and when they have entered into the knowledge of all modes, they become of one color, i.e., of the color of perfect wisdom, and no more distinction between them is conceived, so that one could say, this is the perfection of giving, to this is the perfection of wisdom. And why? Because they have no own being, for that reason no distinction between them is conceived. Subhuti. If, O Lord, of any dharma which is modeled on an objective entity no distinction or difference is conceived, how is it that the perfection of wisdom has been declared to be among the perfections the foremost, the principal, to the unequaled? The Lord. So it is, Subhuti, so it is. No distinction or difference is conceived of any dharma which is modeled on an objective entity. But it is in order to free beings from the round of birth and death that through agreed symbols and worldly convention the perfection of giving, to the perfection of wisdom have been conceived. But all those beings are not born, do not die, have not deceased, are not reborn, are not beings. From the non-beingness of beings should the non-beingness of all dharmas be known. By this method the perfection of wisdom has been declared to be among the perfections the foremost, to the unequaled. As Subhuti. Among the women of Jambudvipa, however many there may be, one may be called the most precious, just so the perfection of wisdom has been declared among the perfections to be the foremost, to the unequaled. Subhuti. What is here the intent in declaring the perfection of wisdom to be the foremost? The Lord. Because this perfection of wisdom, having taken hold of all wholesome dharmas, will stand in the knowledge of all modes by way of not taking a stand there. The first discrimination of the subject, referring to the common people as being substantial entities, which is ninefold, with regard to taking hold of, and liberation. Subhuti. Does then the perfection of wisdom take hold of any dharma, or does it release one? The Lord. No, it does not. And why? Because all these dharmas are neither seized nor released. Subhuti. Which all dharmas does the perfection of wisdom neither seize nor release? The Lord. Form 2. Enlightenment. The discrimination of attention. Subhuti. How does form 2, the knowledge of all modes, become something that has not been taken hold of? The Lord. Through the non-attention to form, through the non-attention to the knowledge of all modes, enlightenment becomes something that has not been taken hold of. It is thus that form 2, enlightenment becomes something that has not been taken hold of. Subhuti. If, O Lord, one should not attend to form, how then, with form being unattended, do the wholesome roots grow? And how, when they do not grow, are the six perfections fulfilled? And how, without the six perfections being fulfilled, can the knowledge of all modes be reached? The Lord. When the bodhisattva does not attend to form, to enlightenment, then his wholesome roots will grow, the six perfections be fulfilled, the knowledge of all modes be reached. And why? After he has not attended to form, to enlightenment, he will know full enlightenment. The discrimination of the non-adherence to that which belongs to the triple world. Subhoti. What is the reason why, not having attended to form, to enlightenment, he will reach the knowledge of all modes? The Lord. Because through his non-attention he does not cling to the world of sense desire, the world of form, or the formless world. By this non-attention he does not cling to anything. It is thus indeed that the bodhisattva, the great being, who courses in perfect wisdom, should not cling to any dharma whatever. The discrimination of the standing place. Subhoti. When the bodhisattva, the great being, thus courses in perfect wisdom, where then will he stand? The Lord. When he courses thus, the bodhisattva, the great being, will not stand in form's knowledge of all modes, or in anything else up to the discrimination of settling down in their discrimination between non-existence, existence and subhoti. For what reason does he not stand even in this knowledge of all modes? The Lord. Because of his not settling down anywhere does he not stand anywhere. And why? Because he does not review all the dharmas in which he might settle down or abide. It is thus that the bodhisattva, the great being, courses in perfect wisdom by way of not settling down, by way of not taking his stand anywhere. The discrimination between objective and nominal entities. But if it occurs to the bodhisattva, the great being, that he who courses thus, who develops thus, he courses in perfect wisdom, he develops perfect wisdom. I course in perfect wisdom, I develop wisdom. If he perceives thus, then he moves away from perfect wisdom, he gets far away from the perfection of wisdom, and from the other perfections too. From the knowledge of all modes. And why? Because the perfection of wisdom does not settle down in any dharma, nor is it capable of doing so. And why? Because that wherein one could settle down has no own being. If again the bodhisattva, the great being, perceives even the perfection of wisdom, then he has fallen away from it. When he falls away from the perfection of wisdom, then he falls away from all dharmas. If it occurs to him, the perfection of wisdom takes hold of the perfections too, of the knowledge of all modes, then the bodhisattva, the great being, has fallen away from the perfection of wisdom. But someone who has failed in the perfection of wisdom is not able to know full enlightenment. If again it occurs to him, one who has stood in this perfection of wisdom will be predicted to full enlightenment, then the bodhisattva, the great being, has fallen away from the perfection of wisdom. And someone who has fallen away from the perfection of wisdom is not predicted to full enlightenment. If again it occurs to him, a bodhisattva, a great being who has stood in this perfection of wisdom consummates the perfection of giving to the great compassion, then the bodhisattva, the great being, has fallen away from the perfection of wisdom. And why? Because someone who has fallen away from the perfection of wisdom is not capable of consummating the perfection of giving to the great compassion. If again it occurs to him, the Tathagata has taken hold of all dharmas. On his own he has fully known them, and then he has proclaimed, demonstrated and revealed them, then the bodhisattva, the great being, has fallen away from the perfection of wisdom. And why? Because the Tathagata does not conceive any dharma, how much will he fully know one? That is quite impossible. The discrimination of attachment. Subhoti. How can a bodhisattva, a great being who courses in perfect wisdom, be without these faults? The Lord. If the bodhisattva, the great being who courses in perfect wisdom, perceives that all dharmas, as unattached and not taken hold of, cannot be fully known, if he courses thus, then he courses in perfect wisdom. But if he settles down in a dharma, which he cannot possibly take hold of, then he lacks in perfect wisdom. And why? Because the perfection of wisdom cannot be expressed by way of settling down.